So today we have on our podcast show Darren Wade from Strive Real Estate, and we're happy to have him on the show here. And so this has been a progress, or at least I say a long-awaited show here from an industry expert. That's I give high recommendations to, but I'll let the man himself introduce himself, tell a little bit about his business, what he does in the Valley, and how many lives that he has touched, including myself. He has helped me as well with homeownership.
Yeah, right on. Thank you, Marshawn, for having me on. I'm excited to be here, excited to share with you and your audience and talk about real estate and investing and interest rates and things like that. Quick bio about myself. Darren Wade, Dat Realtor Investor, Dat_Realtor_Investor on Instagram. I've been licensed agent since 2010. What got me started in real estate was reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad back in 2004. It really piqued my interest on how the world, how parts of the world operates, right? The financial part of the world operates. The stuff I didn't learn in school, I learned it through that book. Not everything, but just the basics. At that time, I was going to college, and I realized that college was just another business. And whether I graduated with a degree or something, that didn't guarantee my success at the next stage in life, or didn't guarantee that I was going to get a good paying job to pay back all the loans that I would have racked up in college. And so after a year and a half at Fresno State, I moved away to Southern California, one of my friends, and had the dreams and ambitions of starting a business out there in Southern California, because it seemed like everything thrives in SoCal. And went out there for 4 years, got sick with Crohn's disease. I almost said COVID. I got sick with Crohn's disease and lost a lot of weight, and so I had to come back in 2008. And then resting period, or a period of getting healthy again. And then I got into real estate in 2012 after working at the bank for a few years. Since 2012, actually in 2015, my wife and I started Strive Real Estate Group, which is a team or a business within the brokerage that we're at now, which is Real Broker, which is a cloud-based broker. And we have helped, I don't know the total number of families, but last year alone, we helped 144 families. The year before that, we helped 120 families, I believe, or close to 120 families. And we are in the top, we're usually like top 5 or top 10 out of 4,000 agents, top 1 or top 0.5% locally in Fresno in the amount of families that we help every year. And in 2015 as well is when we purchased our first home. And then shortly after that, we purchased our first investment property. And we now own, as of today, we own 18 doors, I believe it is. We added a door last week, in the process of buying a commercial property right now. And we also have an investment business where we are doing some wholesaling, and then flipping some of those properties and bringing them to the market as well. So yeah, we have I'm a dad first, a husband first, and an agent second. 3 kids. We have twins that are 2 years old, and then an almost 6-year-old boy named DJ. So that's a quick bio about myself.
Man, that's a lot. I mean, you are a realtor dad. And so, I mean, you truly got a mastered balancing the work, life, and real estate business. And, it's every day, waking up, what is like your schedule to, get up in the morning and then know, you got to, sometimes bring work home, and then helping those people that are, having a dream or an aspiration of home ownership and not want to be stuck as renters. And, homeownership is not for everyone, but, the process. And now what the market conditions are, can we talk about the market conditions as far as, the inventory, what's going on with the interest rates and things like that?
Yeah. Real quick, I'll give you my schedule. It varies. I'll give you my schedule, and then kind of how we juggle work life counterbalance, because we used to try to balance it, but we realized it doesn't balance much. Luckily, my wife is in the industry as well. She's a real estate agent and an investor, a boss, a owner, like myself. And so it helps because we use our calendar a lot. So we both know what each other is doing and when one needs to be home with the kids, or when we need to have a babysitter, or when we're out on an appointment or a showing or something like that. So that definitely helps out our schedule. In this industry, it's flexible enough to take kids with us to a showing, not really a listing appointment, but to a showing, because usually those buyers have, kids or family, or they understand that, the kids may need to come along. So we do that from time to time when we need to. We thank God we can work from our phones, so we can do a lot of stuff from our phones, right? Because we have a team that we work with, and partners, other real estate partners that we work with, that can either show homes for us, write offers for us, draft up paperwork for us, take pictures for us, all that other stuff, all those pivotal tasks that a real estate agent needs to be able to do. And so that definitely helps out with our work-life counterbalance as well, a lot. Real quick schedule in the morning. My goal is to wake up at 6 a.m. every morning. I try to have the first hour just for myself before the kids wake up, before the world wakes up, before I get phone calls and text messages and things like that. I do breathing exercise, ride the Peloton, a couple push-ups, get some water in my body, listen to something good, and sometimes I do a 10-minute breathing or a meditation session. And so that's what my morning looks like. And then the kids wake up, and then I got to get ready. Then babysitter comes, and we go off to the office, and then whatever we have on our calendar for that day, we knock it out as best as we can. We don't always do good at knocking everything off of our to-do list every day, but we try our best. Yeah, so our days kind of just go where our calendar takes us, and then if there's an emergency, then we got to adjust from there. So it's crazy. It's crazy I don't know. It's crazy. We just go with the flow.
Would you say that the exercise gives you more of a clear mind or balanced approach on starting your, real estate day on helping clients? Because, we do know that exercise helps rejuvenate the body and mind. Would you go ahead and really say that would also help keep you sharp and focused in the industry as well?
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. On days when I do my morning routine or I exercise, I feel better going into the day, right? I feel like I've already accomplished something.
Yeah.
Maybe hard, right? If I'm not on lift weights anymore, but just getting through the workout is a win for me. And so yeah, it definitely makes me feel some type of way, gives me a clearer mindset, kind of puts things in balance for me mentally. So definitely helpful.
So that's positive mind and a positive body and attitude. And so a lot of people have, experiences with realtors that, wasn't as positive. And so I think, you can carry that energy off into some of your clients. And,
Yeah.
that's kind of also helps, you be able to be more successful as an agent. And like you said, digital transformation or the technology has also leveraged or at least catapulted, your career. And I know there's some agents that are, still haven't made that shift, to technology, but with everything now being digital, electronic signatures, and the COVID pandemic, getting past that. I mean, how was your hurdles with that? I mean, I know you guys had made some achievements, during COVID as well, and you wasn't set back, by the restrictions, correct?
Yeah, we wasn't completely set, but we were set back for a short period of time, just like I think most people or the world was. Um, um, and yeah, I thought the world was going to end for a couple of weeks there, maybe for a couple of months there, until they deemed real estate agents as essential, right? Then we was able to start working again. Of course, we had to work, either wearing gloves or wearing N95 mask or whatever it was. So our lives was affected. Our people that were buying and selling homes, lives were affected. Um, that tightened up the market even more, which we'll get into in a little bit. It was a crazy time, but we were fortunate enough that we weathered that storm, um, mentally, and financially, and we're still able to help a lot of people that year. And not just in real estate, but in other ways as well. So during that year, or at the end of that, near the end of that year, we gave back more money that year than we did any other year, and not just money, time, meals to families that need it, and other things like that. Since we were fortunate enough to have more money on our side than most did at that time because they were losing their jobs or furloughed or whatever it was, we was able to help back and support people, and so that felt really good.
That's something that I don't really hear too often. The philanthropy part of it. And so, could you go ahead and explain a little bit more about giving back? Because most agents are driven on their commission, and that's not the approach or the mind. At least the mission that you guys are here to help families. And giving back is always good because it's not always profit driven, and it's more community driven. And so that's a different kind of a business model that I've heard. The first person that I've heard that actually is giving back, to their clients or to the community.
Yeah. So definitely one of our big things to do is to give back in one way or another. One way that we give back is to our son, our 6-year-old, almost 6-year-old boy, DJ. He was born in the NICU at Clovis Community Hospital. And he was born 8 weeks early or 2 months early. And the NICU nurses there took such good care of him that we've seen them as heroes. We've seen them as angels. And so after he was a year old and he came from a little 5-pound little boy to like 90-something percentile plus in height and weight, we wanted to show our appreciation to the NICU nurses there. And so out of every single commission check, whether I close it or my wife closes it or somebody on our team closes it, we give back to Clovis Community NICU specifically. And so we're proud donors of their hospital, which is a locally owned, it's not like a big company. I think it's all locally owned hospital system or network system. And we pledged to give back $50,000 over a 5-year period of time. And and we increased that a couple of times. First off at like 15,000, then went up again. So I think we're right now at $50,000 that we're going to give back to them over a 5-year period of time. Giving back a couple of the other organizations that we gave back to was Live Again Fresno, which off of Belmont and Olive on 99. There's hotels there. Some of us know it as a hostro. There's kids and mothers that live in those hotels on the front side that's facing the freeway and on the back side as well. And I didn't know that. I thought it was just pimping and hoeing, for lack of better words. And once we got turned on to this, or somebody came to us with this program, then we started giving back to them as well, in hopes to help a kid and a mother get out of that lifestyle, right, or get away from those from that toxic environment. So that's another thing that we gave back to.
I think that's great because you guys are touching not just homeowners' lives, you're also touching those that are less fortunate, and you're supporting a community. And, that's a big impact, and also a reason that would let me say that I would choose an agent that has compassion as well as, empathy for the less fortunate, as well as, out there can understand those struggles, because you can impact that, family or kid life. And maybe they might one day become, a real estate agent, and remember that, because, those are paying it forward. I think that's awesome.
But, absolutely.
Yeah. But I definitely, thank you for sharing that experience with our podcast show here today. But let's talk about the products and the markets and, the interest rates, because a lot of people that I talk to, whether it's untrue information, partial information saying that, buying a house right now is not a good time, but it depends on what's right for that person, regardless of the interest rates.
I agree.
Because, housing is always going to go up. If you rent, you're going to pay someone else's mortgage, and they're going to always increase it based on the cost of living.
Yep. I agree with that. Yep. Sorry, what was your question there?
As far as the market, what is the interest rate right now? And because right now I know the Feds, the Fed hikes has been, it's pretty much the highest it's ever been in maybe 20, 30 years. And what do you see in
Yeah.
the rate set at the market now? I know it changes on a monthly or a weekly basis.
Yeah, actually, it changes on a daily basis. And I'm not a lending expert, but I do know that they're hovering around 5%, right? You may be able to get something a little bit less than 5% or above 5%. This year alone, rates have gone up faster than they have, I think, over the last 10 years or something along those lines, or maybe even more than that. It's increased rapidly fast. Historically, though, over the last 30 years or even longer than that, interest rates are historically still low, right? I think the lowest that we've seen maybe last year was high twos for some borrowers, high twos, low threes, right? I heard some people getting 2.75, which is crazy. Um, and nowadays you're probably getting right around 5%. So it definitely has increased um, this year. There is talks that it may go back down some. Who knows when that will be? Right? I think there needs to be some equilibrium in the market, or um, a positive outlook in the market to bring the bonds down. And I don't know too much about all that talk, but just talking to my lending partners, that's just what I gathered from them, that the interest rate could go back down at some point.
So it would be fair to say that people shouldn't have the FOMO, fear of missing out on buying a house, or trying to, qualify to, buy a house and continue to, look for that home ownership with with the right real estate agent.
Correct. I think somebody should continue looking for a home if they need a home, right? Home ownership means different things for different people, but we do know that in the long run, that the home values trajectory is up, and it's almost always been up. It goes down every now and then, or flattens out every now and then, but it's almost always up, right? So you have long-term wealth that you can grow, or in equity that you can grow from owning real estate. The money factor of it, right? The interest rate. If you can buy a home and leverage, the bank allows you to borrow 97.5%, when you're putting down 3.5% of an asset, and borrowing money at only 5%, like, that's low. That's
Yeah.
cheap, right? If you're buying a stock, you'd have to put down 100% of that stock price in order to own that, that share, or that fraction of the share, or whatever it is that you're buying, right?
Mhm.
In real estate, it's a highly leveraged asset, which is a beautiful thing, and I don't believe any other asset classes have that, and that's why the most successful people and the most wealthy people all own real estate, more than one property. But yeah, to get back to your question, I think the monthly mortgage payment is something that each buyer lives with every month, right? And so if they have a good job now, have had a good job for the last 2 years, and they can see themselves staying in that job and making that amount of money, and if that money makes sense for that mortgage payment, then you pull the trigger. It's a fool's game trying to predict when values will go down or interest rates will go down, right? Nobody knows when or what or how it's going to happen. It's always the unexpected things that happen in the world that make those things change or adjust dramatically. And so I think it's risky to try to wait for that. I would say focus on the monthly mortgage payment. Talk to a mortgage professional that can educate you on the costs of waiting, right?
Mhm.
On different examples of, hey, if the market goes down, if values go down, let's say 10%, but interest rates go up another 1%, like, what does that mean, right? Does that mean that you're better off, your higher payment, or you're paying more in interest in the long run, or talk to somebody that knows and that can draw that out for you and show you numbers, so that way you can get a better idea in your head, right? So
Yeah.
it may be better to pay $100 more now, but in the long run, maybe you're paying less because your interest rate is lower than what it could be, in 3 months, 6 months, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's options, for people that can lock in their interest rates, and so I think, me, I'm waiting on the DRE and, to approve my license as a mortgage loan officer. So, I'm excited to get into the real estate as well. And, I'm all for, like you said, home ownership, and that's building the generational wealth and passive income. And so I understand, exactly what you're saying, but to someone that doesn't have that information and, the education part of it, waiting out, and if there's an opportunity to buy, especially if it's a good buy, they shouldn't miss out on that opportunity, because like you said, you put 3.5% down on something to own, and then you can leverage that, it's a huge potential.
It does. It definitely does. Yeah. No,
And,
I agree.
and so how many offers are made, on houses now versus, a couple of years ago? Because I seen a funniest meme. It was I think it was a TikTok about a lady buying a house, 2 years ago, and she was just as unprofessional as possible. And then now it's like another time they showed up with a realtor drinking a bottle of some kind of a whiskey, and like going to being drunk and belligerent, stressed out because she couldn't close her deal because there was like 100 offers, and they were trying to get the kid as well as part of the buyers down payment with a kid, selling the kid with the house.
Wow.
It was pretty funny.
That is crazy. Yeah. So we had this conversation in our team meeting last week on how many offers we are submitting. So it depends. Right now, the buyers that are getting their offers accepted that are on market, right, on MLS through an agent, they're usually getting their offer accepted if they have an appraisal gap, right? And real quickly, what an appraisal gap is most offers. So the homeowner will list the home at what they believe it's worth. Right? Let's just say $100,000 for simple numbers. But buyers know that they need to come above the list price if they want to get the home, right? And so let's say the buyer comes in at $120,000, right? But comparables in the area, that's higher. That home, that 120 is higher than the other homes that are selling in the area. And so that home, when it's appraised by a licensed appraiser that gives their opinion of value at that time, it may not appraise at 120, right? It may appraise at 105 or 110, something like that. And so if that buyer has, let's say, a $10,000 appraisal gap and it appraises at 110, then that guarantees the seller will get the 120 purchase price, or $10,000 more than the appraisal price, appraisal price, depending on what that appraisal comes in at. Does that make sense?
I mean, it does to me, but I know that, it's not like more people are just, competing with 4 to 5 offers. Now you're looking at dozens of offers, and how do they select which offers? Like now you're going to, instead of buying a house, you're not only buying a house, you're also interviewing, your family and selling yourself, and competing, with an inventory that is really small and thin.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question about how many number of offers, last year, and of course it's price point specific, or it depends, or relative, I should say. I got 30 something offers on one of my listings. I've heard somebody getting 50 something offers on the listing, and I think the price points were in the 2s or 3s. Right now, anything under $500,000 is almost getting multiple offers, right? As long as the list price is somewhere within the range of the value in the area, then they're getting multiple offers, right? But if a seller, like that, back to that $100,000 example, if a seller priced a home at 130 and all the buyers and buyers agents know it's not going to appraise for 130, that seller's tripping, then they're not going to put in. They may not put an offer in at 130. They may put an offer at 130 or 140 just to try to get the home. But they'll probably put the offers in. Maybe put it in a little bit less. I'm not seeing that too much right now. But what I'm trying to get at is it's relative to the list price, and what's happening in the area will determine how many offers a listing will get. Because interest rates have gone up some, and because there has been I would say a hold up in sellers selling because they can't find another place or replacement property to purchase, and so that's creating tighter inventory levels. Um, there are nowadays with interest rates going up, there's less offers. We're probably seeing maybe 5 to 10 offers um, nowadays, as opposed to 20 or 30 offers a year ago. And so yeah, that has changed some, but there are still multiple offers on most properties that are listed well and that are in good condition or decent condition. Even crap nowadays is getting selling for a good amount. And I think that goes to show that people value the asset of real estate more than the dollar in their bank, right? They
Yeah.
have more confidence in the asset um, to beat inflation or just to grow, or they just need a home to stay in, right? Or a home to live in, have a roof over their head, than they do having money in the bank. Um, and so that's been interesting to see lately, and to hear that from someone else. I was like, oh, that makes sense. And I was looking at something that Ray Dalio. He's a big hedge fund, like one of the most successful hedge fund managers. Um, he has a video. I forget what the name is, but he has a video where he talks about during tough times like this of high inflation, real estate is one of the best assets to put your money into because it will beat inflation, right? And your money at the end of that will come out higher than what inflation did or was.
Okay. Well, that's a good piece of information to absorb, and also to kind of think about. And like you said, a lot of that has to do with the comps and the listing of the last selling price of whatever the house was in the area. Another question that I wanted to kind of elaborate on is like, what makes a good agent? Because I have referred people to you because I know that the agent seems like they was not putting a client in the best of the price point. And
Mm-hmm.
so if I'm pre-qualified for 300,000, why would you take me to go see a house or a listing that was at 395 or 400,000 when it just it's wasting my time, where I need to find something that's within what I can afford and what I'm approved for?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. Every agent has different practices in the way they go about doing things. What we like to do is, I mean, if somebody's approved for $300,000 right now in this market, we're gonna, they should probably be looking in 280 range, right? So that way they have buffer, homes at 280 or less. So that way they
Hmm.
can put in offers at 300,000 at their max and be competitive to get their offer considered or accepted, right? But if they're looking at
Hmm.
320 or 310 and their max 300, right? Unless that $300,000 listing is overpriced, right, where the seller and the agent um, priced it high, then they not even look at or consider that offer.
Hmm.
Yeah, because chances are they're going to get higher offers than that, and especially in that price range, they're definitely going to get multiple offers. Because like 300,000 right now is like the new 200,000. As of like 2 years ago, a home with 200,000 is now probably worth 300,000 or selling for that at least.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, what controls the price of the house is the appraisal. Even though I'm a owner and I believe my value is this, but the appraisal always comes down to what they know that what this house is really worth. And when it comes to a lending point of view, if I'm going with an FHA or conventional or VA, they're not going to loan up more than the greater than the value of the home unless I'm a cash buyer. Do you have a lot more cash
Right.
buyers now versus traditional loans?
Yes, we do see a lot more cash buyers. Um, and where the cash is coming from, I'm not exactly sure. Because it makes me scratch my head sometimes, right? A person that comes from humble beginnings and not having a lot of money, when somebody's putting 500, 600,000, $1 million down on a house or to buy a house, to me it's like, damn, where'd you get that money from, right? But we are seeing a lot more cash buyers. I do know where some of the cash buyers are coming from, so I will say this: Southern California and Northern California, right? You can sell $1 million shack in one of those places and buy a $500,000 home that's bigger than what you had out there here in Fresno or the
Mm-hmm.
surrounding areas, right? And so to them, it makes sense. It's a no-brainer for them because it's probably $500,000 in equity that they got or more from their shack that they sold and then they moved down here, right? And then they're still able to put money in the bank as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where some of the cash buyers are coming from.
I I had a client. He actually was able to buy a house because he sold and bought enough Bitcoin, not Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and he let that
That's
money
tight.
season in his bank for 3 months, and it
Uh-huh.
was all they sourced the money, sourced where it came from,
Uh-huh.
and he bought his house off of investing into Bitcoin. And I was like, because a lot of people cashed out on the Doge, and so he cashed out on his Bitcoin and multiple other cryptocurrencies, and he
Nice.
used that as a down payment on him a home, and now he has a home, and I think he sold over close to almost $100,000 in Bitcoin as far as the cost basis was.
Wow. That is pretty tight. That's right. I'm
So
curious to
those are
see.
other
Oh, go
creative
ahead.
ways of of buying a home. I mean, I was like, interesting. It's
Yeah,
not
he
always
he got
about
lucky.
saving. Yeah.
He got lucky, right? And I say that in a nice way, right? Because luck, it plays a part in all of our lives in one way or another. And that Dogecoin market, blew up at the right time when he had the right amount of shares or coins, and yeah, that's super tight to be able to do that.
Yeah, that was the first I've ran across. And so, people that, are looking at, I don't have enough money or there's no way I'm gonna own a home. Like you said, there's luck. There's ways of luck and opportunity that are there. And that's a new way of looking at home ownership. And even in stock markets, there's people that have cashed out, enough money to buy a home off of that. Of course, you got to qualify with income, but
Hmm.
that was just one of those situations that I was like, wow.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty tight, pretty crazy too. Yeah, I've heard of people buying luxury items from Bitcoin and stuff like that too, cars and things. But yeah, that's a
Yeah.
whole nother market, whole nother conversation.
Well, you answered my question on buying and selling, as far as what's right. But the other one I want to talk about is, your client testimonials, and what, your clients are, positive feedback, about, what you guys have done to go above and beyond to, help those people get in those homes. Because as myself, from my own personal experience, you guys helped me with my home ownership. And even when, there were some things you guys did for me as an agent, and not always was like, I need my 100% commission. You guys also are able to, supported me with mine. And I always remember that. And as my family and my kids, I have like, a little one now growing up, you know, just teach them the mindset. And I know you said you had your kids involved in the real estate, going to showings, but do you see your bringing your kids up in the business as well and becoming a family and generational thing? Because what you're doing now is creating a legacy. And you guys, like I said, over the hundreds and hundreds of people, and you multiply that by years and factors, that's a lot of people. And, you guys are not just looking at what the healthcare workers did for your kids, but what you do for families. You guys are considered realtors, heroes too, as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree, and I take pride in that. Yeah, I take pride in that because I do believe that we are a hero of some sort, and helping people find ways, helping people that didn't believe they could, or those that do believe they could or buy a home, um, help them find a way to do that, right, and be that guiding person, that guiding profession, that guiding advisor to help them navigate, to help them from even the beginning when they need to save up money, right? Helping them with a plan to save up enough money, or letting them know about a program that will help them cover some down payment assistance or something like that, right? Um, yeah, that's cool. As far as legacy and our kids joining the business, I believe. Oh, I don't know. It'd be up to them, of course, right? What they want to do, but we do plan um, to have this business around this business of helping folks in the real estate, buy, sell, and invest in real estate, and beyond that, for as long as we can, because when I first got in the business, I wanted to make an impact in people's lives, and that's what we're doing every day through real estate. I hope my kids do become real estate professionals or business owners of some sort. I mean, they will have rental property and commercial property and things like that to manage or watch the portfolio or whatever they'll be doing at that point in time. Um, so, well, they'll definitely be involved in one way or another. They go to our flips, they go to our Airbnbs, they go to all those things. So it's cool to see them running around and not really knowing what's going on. But I know one day they'll be able to look back on that and be like, oh, that's our rental property. Like we own that. So it's a good feeling to have.
Do you see a lot of lease to own options or lease to buy options or seller finance, or is it more traditional, mortgage, 30-year fixed mortgages and things like that? I mean, what are you seeing like on a case by case basis? I mean, have you seen any of those creative financing? And like you said, it's always not about the money, it's about helping the family and looking at, our sellers willing to concede on getting, that and helping another family, especially if they are a family that is, deserving, or at least has one to give them a chance, because, that's a door opener, an opportunity for them.
It is. It is. No, I do not see a lot of actually, I don't see any lease to own or seller financing things going on right now. Maybe a couple seller finance things here and there, right? But there has to be a reason for it. Most sellers would rather just accept a cash offer or a financed offer, right, to just get rid of that asset or that home, right? Because if a seller decide or agrees to seller finance, now they've upgraded to be in the bank, right? But they're still attached to the home in one way or another. And most sellers would rather not. Most sellers want their lump sum right now or in 30 days once the loan closes, as opposed to doing a lease own option. That's more for investors right now. And I've purchased a home on seller finance. Actually, I purchased a couple properties over the last couple of years using seller financing. The first home I bought was seller financing as well. Yeah. So I personally, as an investor, use it and pitch that option to sellers if that's a solution or can be a solution or helps us meet their goal. But I'm not seeing retail sellers do seller financing to retail buyers. Yeah,
That's
I think
interesting.
it's not the market for that, but I do know there could be a market coming up, right? If yeah, and I know there was a market for that years and years ago, maybe in the mid 2000s when interest rates were either too high or I don't know. It's just when things don't make sense one way or another, buyers and sellers look for another option. And so, but right now, that's not that big of an option or solution. Go ahead.
You hit on a key thing. It's just not you're able to help a person be a home buyer. You also can help investors, if I understand things correctly, if they're looking to, investment properties,
Mm-hmm.
and you pretty much have a background of being an investor realtor. So if I'm a homeowner, I can also turn homeowners into real estate investors as well, and go to you as a source of information or knowledge, not just also acquiring, like you said, these assets.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. One specific example is the first home that we bought in 2015 for our personal residence. Right. We lived in that home for 6 years. No, 5 years. 4 years, actually. 4 years. And then our family was growing, or we had the son. And then I think she was pregnant with the twins at that time. My wife was pregnant with the twins. And we turned that first home into our first Airbnb in December, January, or yeah, late 2019 is when we turned that into an Airbnb. And so to tie into what you were saying, homeowners that purchase a home, they can upgrade into a new home. I believe it's every 1 or 2 years, right? And then they can turn that previous property into an investment property, right? That upgraded home needs to be, and I don't know the exact requirements, a lender would know better than I do, but
Hmm.
the lender needs to see that you have a reason to move, right? A bigger home, a higher price, maybe you maybe closer to school or work or something like that, right? It can't be a lesser home in the eyes of the lender, right? Because they're not going to believe that you're going to live in that home. And the reason why that's important is because, let me say that at the beginning statement again. You can buy a new home as an owner occupied buyer every 1 to 2 years, right?
I
Which
see.
means you can also put down less money every 1 to 2 years to buy that new home, because you're telling the lender that that new home is your new occupy or owner occupied home, right? The home that you're going to occupy as your home, right? And you can do that every 1 to 2 years and then turn each of those other properties into investment properties.
I see. Well, that's you ought to teach a real estate investor class then, since that's a strategy you pretty much are an expert in, and have that knowledge in, and not for people just to say, hey, we're limited. They can turn that into a business as well as a home ownership. And that's
Mm-hmm.
great to hear. That you have that. They have that ability to go a directional with their one home, and move and upscale that. I think that's a good thing there. What about the pre-approved now versus pre-qualified, like you're saying, with the way that the offers are going in? Do you have clients? Because I know one of the things that had me with an offer that I submitted, because they rejected mine because it wasn't all the way. I think it was
Like
pre-qualified,
pre-qualified, yeah.
and it wasn't fully underwritten, and the tax return and transcripts wasn't full. So they pretty much, even though I gave them what their asking price was, they kind of like threw that off the table. And I really liked the house, but we ended up finding something just equally better. But where are you at with that with your clients? Do you have them shop when they have a pre-qualification letter, or do you go out with them being fully underwritten, and it gives them more of a buying competition or competitiveness?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, really good question and really key thing for buyers to understand right now. There's, I would say, just three levels, right? There's a pre-qual, a pre-approval, and a DU, or a desktop underwritten approval letters, right? And they all, this is like basic. You give basic information to the lender. Oh, hey, this is my credit score. This is my income. This is my expenses. Tell me what I qualify off of that. Right. That's very simple, very basic. Not really, the lender's not verifying any of the information that you're giving them at that time. Maybe running credit, maybe not. So very basic, and that's really weak for a buyer to go in the eyes of a seller. It's a weak buyer, right? um, the pre-approval is where the lender will run credit, check assets, um, check your income, check your pay stubs, check your W-2s, check your tax return, check all those things and say, okay, yeah, it's good. This lines up, this matches up, this is how much you can qualify for, and here's your pre-approval letter, right? That is most common, because it takes more time or manpower for a lender to go through the desktop underwriting process. And I don't know why they call it desktop underwriting, but I think they put it into a system, all that information, and then it underwrites it. And there's also manual underwriting as well, where it's a physical person that looks at everything and plugs in all the numbers and things like that. The desktop underwritten approval is the strongest because they've already looked at everything that needs to be done, and they've already spent some time on the front end, um, processing your file as a buyer. And so that looks best to sellers because a few different reasons. It shows that the lender will likely not have as many surprises, right, happen, because they've already solved all the surprises that could happen. Whether it's with employment, or on the credit, or credit, or whatever it is. Those things are potentially eliminated by going through that process. Time. Buyers with desktop underwritten or DU approvals can usually close faster than a 30-day process that it would take for a regular approved buyer, or a buyer that's just approved. And that's because they've already done some of that processing work up front. And that's why loans, most purchases take about 30 days, because just the processing from start to finish. But if they're desktop underwritten already, then they may be able to close in 14 to 21, 14 to 25 days, or something like that. Of course, depending on how fast the appraisal comes in, because that's usually the thing that usually takes the longest. So those are the three levels, and being a desktop underwritten buyer is the best. And
So,
and sellers take you more serious, and will take you more serious over a pre-qualified buyer.
so what is your recommendation? I know you've already went through the 3 different levels. And as far as when you're out with, your potential home buyers, do you have your home buyers with level 2 and 3, which is the, not the pre-qualified, but have pulled the tax transcripts, as well as the 3rd level where it's a desktop? So you having, strong buyers out there in the market with competing, with the low inventory. And because that, like you said, increases your success rate of closing the deal.
Mm-hmm. What was the question? Sorry.
I say, what do you recommend when you have, potential clients that are out shopping, and, you explain that to them? Do they also take your recommendations and want to lean towards being a strong buyer, or do you still have, those people that, it just goes in the ear, out the other ear, and they're out there trying to compete with weak buyers? Because that just doesn't, there's no advantageous to that. It doesn't make sense for them to be out there competing in a market with, that heavily saturated, and they're not strong enough to even, close the deal.
Yeah. No. And so we choose not to work with buyers that don't take our professional advice, right? They can choose not to work with us as well, right? So it works both ways. So if they're not happy with what we're saying, or how we're trying to guide them with what we know is best in this current market, then they're not going to listen to us, when we're trying to give them other advice in other areas as well. So we definitely recommend the DU underwritten buyers. For sure, 100%. That is the best, because that's the best position they can be in. We do work with some approved buyers as well, but before we work with those approved buyers, we will call the lender and ask the lender questions as well. Right? We don't just take it for face value, because surprises have came up, more often than anybody would like, and we want to avoid that at all costs, right? We want to avoid the headache, the heartache for the buyer. We want to avoid that for the seller that done, packed up all their clothes and all their boxes and all their furniture and stuff, and then day 28 of a 30-day transaction, find out that the buyer can't close because of something that could have been, found out or prevented prior to going into escrow. So,
Okay. That's good information to know, because it's a business relationship, and not everyone is a right fit for you, and you're not a right fit for them. And it has to, like you said, it has to work together as a team, because, you guys are representing the buyers, and, everyone wants to be on a winning team. And of course, every deal isn't, going to be a winning deal, but that does make sense to be out there in the field with the strongest possibilities of closing the deal and not spinning their wheels.
Exactly. Yep. And getting their offer accepted, right? If the buyer wants to get their offer accepted, then they would listen to our advice, and listen to the lender's advice, more importantly, right? Because those are the person with the numbers, and that will be giving them the loan, and doing what they say, right? And I think that's just the best way to do it, right? You don't, period. You listen to the expert. You seek us out to help you with something, and we're telling you what to do, so do it. And and eventually, maybe after 5-10 offers, you'll get an offer accepted, and you'll be a homeowner sooner than later.
I mean, it sounds like you guys are, like the brain surgeons of the real estate. You're not going to go to a foot doctor to, take care of a head injury or trauma, so,
Correct.
you want to go to someone that's going to get get the job done right and meet or exceed the expectations.
Exactly.
And what about the contingencies? Are you seeing those being a lot of issues now, or lenders being flexible with, certain things like, oh, this fascia board is dry rot or needs to be repainted? Are you seeing a lot of those little tit for tat things now, or they're just like, that can be done, on a home improvement, thing, or 203 or something like that?
Yeah, good question. There's two ways I want to answer this. So the lender was only going to know about something if the appraiser brings it to the lender's attention when the appraiser's walking around. I've seen appraisers miss broken windows, which is a hazard for any loan, right? And the appraiser missed the window, and so they didn't tell the lender, and so the lender, they still close on the home. So there is that human error that is involved in that. Lenders usually don't get home inspection reports. And that's just a strategic reason, because if they've seen that, then it's at the lender's discretion to request for the home to be in a certain condition, right? Or for the seller to make repairs, or paint the chipping fascia boards or something like that. So it varies there. I don't know. I wouldn't say I see lenders getting tighter on that or looser on those things, on those contingencies. Now I will, moving over to the buyer side. Buyers nowadays, and again, this is another thing to make an offer stronger in this current market. Buyers are purchasing homes or writing offers and removing their contingencies, right? A buyer has three contingencies in a transaction by default, right? The inspection contingency, which is a 17-day inspection contingency where they can do any and all inspections that they want to do. And if they're not happy with something, they can ask the seller to give them a credit, make the repairs, or they can cancel. Next contingency is the appraisal contingency, which is, we already talked about, right? If the appraisal doesn't come in at a certain amount and the buyer and the seller can't come to an agreement on price, then they can agree to cancel. And the last one is the loan contingency. The loan contingency is connected to the appraisal contingency, because in order for the loan to be fully approved and the buyer to remove that contingency, the appraisal has to come in at the right amount or an agreeable amount to both buyer and seller. So I'm seeing with the DU, back to the DU approval and how that relates to the loan contingency. I'm seeing buyers remove the loan contingency up front because they're already underwritten, right? Fully underwritten. The lender already knows and have discovered all of their skeletons in their closet and have fixed them and solved the problems, right? Inspection contingencies, I'm seeing those are removed on newer homes. I've seen them removed on some older homes as well, but of course that's more risky. Especially if the home looks like it's in distressed condition, right? But the buyer removing their inspection contingency up front, what they're essentially saying is we the buyer won't cancel based on the condition of the home or what the reports say once we get those in. And so they can still cancel for one of the other contingencies if they have them still in place, but they can't cancel because of the condition of the home, right? So they're almost buying it as is. They still can ask the seller to do repairs or ask for credit. They can still do that, right? But then the seller may look at them sideways and be like, "Well, you removed all your contingencies up front, so why am I going to do that?" Right? But it just all depends, right? The people are different, homes are different, et cetera, et cetera. But we do have buyers buying like newer homes, like 2015 or 2012, or homes that are well maintained, and you can see they're well maintained. Putting in offers that are removing the inspection contingency, because that's more enticing to the sellers nowadays, knowing that that's one less leg that buyer can stand on, or one less reason the buyer can cancel, I should say.
Yeah, and then of course the earnest money deposit, once that's in escrow, then that's non-refundable, which goes without saying. But hey, I know
Well, actually, it is.
Oh,
yeah. So yeah, and I do have to get home in a second. My wife has a showing, and I think we try to get our babysitter to stay a little bit later, but she couldn't. So I do got to run home in a second. But EMDs, earnest money deposits, are refundable. They are refundable up until, well, there's an asterisk. So this is how I explain it to a seller and to a buyer. Um, and I'll probably go off a little quick tangent on it, but I'll try to keep it as precise as possible. So back to those contingencies. If a buyer removes all their contingencies up front, meaning they have no leg to stand on, then they're essentially saying, hey, my earnest money deposit, if I cancel, the seller, can have it. Now, there's always an asterisk by it, because that's when the buyer puts in the cancellation, the buyer will then ask for, there's two parts. One is canceling escrow on the top part of that page. The bottom is refund of the earnest money deposit. If the buyer says, hey, I want to keep that earnest money deposit, that goes to the seller to review and either agree to that, or the seller can say, no, you removed all your contingencies up front. You wasted my time. I've already done repairs, or whatever it is, or nothing at all, right? And the seller then can say, no, I want to keep your earnest money deposit, period. But the additional asterisk is, if those two parties can't agree, then escrow, that's holding that earnest money deposit, won't disperse that money, right? Then the seller needs to take legal action against the buyer in order to sue them for the earnest money deposit to get that money from them. Right. So it's a process.
Yeah.
Most sellers would rather just not go through the
Release.
court process, and they'll just release it. Right. Or what I've been successful at, because I represent 95, 99% sellers, is there's been 5 times where a buyer has lost all or some, or not lost, I shouldn't say that, um, gave up or lost, however you want to say it, anyways, all of their earnest money deposit. One was on my own flip that we did. That buyer asked for an extension after 30 days, and then on day 29, he didn't feel right about it or something, so he canceled. Right, and I asked for, as a seller, and I wasn't the agent on it, but I was the owner of the home. I asked for all of that deposit, right, because it took all this time. I believe I did repairs, and he agreed because he knew that it was his fault that he was canceling. So he did give us his earnest money deposit back. One other example was a buyer asked for 3 extensions. So we were probably on day, it's supposed to be like a 30-day transaction, and we were like on day maybe damn near 60 at that time. Because the buyer and the lender was going back and forth, and the lender was asking for more things from the buyer, yada, 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 yada. The buyer, I believe they removed all of their contingencies. The buyer at day 60, when they wanted to cancel because they didn't want to work with their lender anymore, asked for all of their earnest money deposit back. The sellers had made another mortgage payment at that time. They had already done repairs. And so I had the sellers say, hey, how much is your mortgage payment, and how much is the repairs, right? Let's see if we can get more, or get some, not more, because the buyer wasn't trying to give up anything at that time. Let's see if we can get some of that earnest money deposit, right? And so we agreed at the end of the day, at the end of all of it, the buyer agreed to give up half of the earnest money deposit to cover it. That would cover the mortgage payment and the repairs that the seller had done, right? So now the seller's not really out of money for that time wasted and the repairs that they did. And that happened because my conversation with the seller, and then my conversation with the agent, right? Because all conversations, all communication between buyer and seller are filtered through the agent. And so I had to talk to the agent on the other side, the buyer's agent, and kind of school him or game him in a way that showed him that his client wouldn't win in court if the sellers want to take him to court for this, right? Because they had already moved their contingencies, and the sellers had done repairs, and X, Y, and Z reasons. And so, and I said it,
Wow.
of course, in a nice way, and the
Wow.
buyer's agent agreed with me. So then his conversation with the buyer was different, right? And he was able to convince his buyer to do, in my words, the right thing, and give up at least some of his earnest money deposit, right? And another thing to that is, as I mentioned before, escrow wouldn't release the earnest money deposit to the buyer, even though the buyer wanted it. So that earnest money deposit would just be held up in escrow until some agreement was made, right? So it could have
Hmm.
been months, if the seller did take the buyer to court or or something like that, right? So the buyer didn't want to wait for that; they wanted their money back, so they said, "Okay, well, I'll give the seller half. It was my fault that it's drug on this long, and I'm at fault." He finally admitted that, and yeah, so the seller got half of the money, which they were happy about. And then we ended up putting it back on the market and got $10,000 or $15,000 more from the next buyer than we were getting from the previous buyer. So they were super ecstatic and super happy, and it was a win-win for them.
Well, it sounds like, you also do, how would I say, interventions for sometimes, being an agent, helping, like you say, conflict resolutions. That's
All the time.
also important too for an agent to be able to do that, because there can be conflicts between a seller and buyer, and it doesn't have to always lead to court. It can be settled, mutually, or at least between, the two parties.
Yep.
But how do people get a hold of you? And as far as Strive Real Estate, the website, the phone number, if they are interested in, you guys' expertise, and, how your approach is to the market versus another agent that's just, out there home shopping without having that, game plan in place.
Yeah. So you can reach me, or you can find me or follow me on Instagram. I'm Dad Realtor Investor. Again, underscores in between all of those. My wife is Realtor Mom. Realtor, actually, it's all one word. She's Realtor Mom on there. So you can find us on there. I think most people follow people first, and kind of just see who they are through their stories and their Instagram feeds and stuff like that, before they reach out to them. You can DM me there, or you can text me or call me directly. My phone number is 559-312-7467. Again, 559-312-7467. Our website, you can go to strivehome.com. I believe it will forward to strivehomefinder.com, which is our home searching website. So those are the easiest ways to get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to have a conversation. See what problems you're dealing with, and see what solutions we can help you out with. Whether it's on the retail side, or you have an ugly property to sell, and want to sell something on the investor side, on the non-retail side of things. So I can help you out in a few different ways.
What about a phone number? Is there, a phone number to call, or
Uh, Well, yeah, my cell phone number, 559-312-7467, or 559, our office number is 559-840-8838. 840-8838. And then you'll get Aubrey, which is our executive assistant on our team. And then she'll pass it on to either myself or one of the buyers specialists on our team.
So you guys aren't just a two-man real estate agency. You guys have a team of experts and people that are in the same, expertise as you yourself, as you guys have, like-minded agents. I would want to go ahead and correctly say.
Correct. Yep. Our total team, including everybody, admin and our agents, is 11 now. 11. 6 agents, 5 admin, or 4 admin, 6 or 7 agents. I forget. We're onboarding 2 guys right now, 2 agents right now.
So your customer service would be just as great as, your personality, and so that's kind of what people should know, not just, single realtor operator. And so, any other
Correct.
closing notes you want to have, Darren? I know you said
Um,
you have to leave.
yeah, no, man, work hard, be nice. All the good things. Have a positive mindset. I know these are all mental things, but I think in this business, it's a very mentally taxing business or industry. So I'm big on mindset and big on positivity. So that's what I want to leave people with. Work hard, be nice, do well by others, give back, love thy neighbor, and call us for all your real estate needs. Send referrals. We're happy to help with any referrals that you may have.
Okay. we appreciate your time, and I know it's you got to get back to the family, and hopefully you can be requested by popular demand to come back again and talk a little bit more, and invite other people. But thanks again for your time, and look forward to having more people reach out to request your guys' real estate business.
Right on. I appreciate you, Marshawn.
All right, thanks again, Darren.
You're welcome. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
All right, bye-bye.